23 minutes past the hour now. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is in Mexico visiting with police officers on the front lines of a war with the drug cartels. Secretary Clinton said the U.S. shares some of the blame for the violence because American demand for narcotics is fueling the fight. Meantime, the United States is preparing for a worst-case scenario in Mexico's battle with drug traffickers. That would be, what if the Mexican government falls? I want to bring in William Lajeunesse. He's live on the San Ysidro border with, that's California, San Diego, and Mexico. And Ralph Peters is a Fox News strategic analyst and the author of Looking for Trouble, Adventures in the Broken World. Gentlemen, both of your mics are open, but William, first to you. You were saying earlier that you're saying that this could be as bad as the Mariel boat lift in Cuba in the 1970s.
Trace, that is actually the precursor of why Secretary Chertoff, then at Homeland Security in the Bush administration, why he called for this program. He saw that Mexico was deteriorating, so he sent his staff to say, listen, we need a plan, a worst-case scenario, a doomsday scenario, if you will. If the entire social fabric in towns like Tijuana or Juarez, Mexico, not necessarily the country as a whole, basically collapse, what's going to happen? You're going to have refugees streaming out of cities like this, 1.4 million people coming to the U.S. border, and it is a humanitarian effort, and partially in recognition of the fact of the role that American demand plays in the basically why Mexico is a drug superhighway for cocaine, methamphetamine, marijuana, etc. We need to be prepared. So the U.S. Coast Guard would help in evacuation for people leaving by boats, and the Border Patrol and Customs and Border Protection would basically process these people into 10 cities in shelters along the border, that they'd be held there, not given legal status in terms of a refugee or protected status where they're going to get U.S. residency, but held there as refugees until the situation in Mexico would stabilize.
And Ralph Peters, he says, you know, drug superhighway there, and it's a good point because the United States is buying $40 billion worth of drugs from Mexico every year. Not only that, we're sending 90% of their weapons from this country there. I mean, this is a huge problem that America has a lot of responsibility for.
Yeah, it is, and we need to be very clear. This is not a criminal problem any longer. This is a narco-insurgency. These are criminal paramilitary organizations that are directly challenging the Mexican military. And yes, I was actually glad to hear Secretary Clinton, after her botch up in the trip to China, be honest about this. But she left something out. Yes, drug demand here is responsible. Yes, dishonest Americans who help arm these drug cartels for profit have blood on their hands and we need to come down hard on them. But she also left out the fact that lax immigration policies have enabled these drug cartels and drugs vending gangs to flourish in our cities and reach into the heartland. So there's no easy solution.
What if one of the solutions, Ralph, is, like you said, what if one of the solutions is forget about marijuana. Let's decriminalize marijuana, right? And then let's focus on the hard drugs, the cocaines and the heroines of the world, the methamphetamines, and then the marijuana can all come through. We can do whatever, legalize it, and we might at least focus the battle a little bit more and maybe get some success.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't like any drugs. But marijuana is not an inevitable reefer madness gateway drug. I'm not interested in busting Asian hippies who are, you know, playing their old Cheech and Chong albums. We need to concentrate on the killers. We need to concentrate on the people, Americans as well, who vend methamphetamine, obviously cocaine in all its forms, heroin. These people are murderers, and we need to get really, really tough on them. And oh, by the way, both the hard left and the extreme right have to give something in this country.
And William Lajeunesse, back to you very quickly if I can. You know, he talks about legalizing marijuana there. You've covered this border for a long time.
Decriminalizing, please.
Decriminalizing. Okay. Decriminalizing marijuana. You've covered this border for a long time. One, how does it play politically? And two, I mean, the border agents look at this like, come on, that's a non-starter.
Well, two things, Trace. Number one, he's right about the gangs being basically the sales force for the cartels in the United States, and you have in some sanctuary cities a hands-off policy that has allowed these street gangs, 80 to 95% here in Los Angeles, getting their money off of selling drugs. But South America and Latin America have said for years, you guys need to look in the mirror where the problem is, and it's not just the sellers and the dealers, it's the user who is the ultimate one. Now, you could say we tried zero tolerance under Ronald Ronald Reagan that, you know, you're going to jail if you use small. Now we tried drug diversion. That hasn't worked really well either, Trace, which is why many experts are coming to the conclusion that we need to, in some way, shape, or form, take the profit out of this, whether that means decriminalization or something else. Right. Politically, however, that is a hurdle that many Americans are not yet ready to accept. Basically, you know, putting drugs in the same category as alcohol, although many have said that during Prohibition, it wasn't Eliot Ness who killed the mob, it was the end of Prohibition. But down here on the border, what you're going to have, Trace, is just continuing a hardening of the border, and something President Bush needs credit for is by putting in 600 miles of fence and doubling the number of Border Patrol, that has really put us in a situation where we can shut this thing down when we need to, whereas if we were where we were in 2000, and this kind of cartel violence that we had coming up at the border, that'd be an entirely different situation had we not done what Bush did.
It's an interesting debate. William Lajeunesse, Ralph Peters, gentlemen, thank you both.